On this week's show, we continue our celebration of all things Disney Cruise Line with our special guest, Trisha Daab. Welcome to the WDW Reflections Podcast. Here, we'd love to talk about the Walt Disney World Resort, the way we remember it, how it's changed, and why we still enjoy visiting the most magical place on Earth. So come with us on a podcast journey as we reflect on the WDW Reflections Podcast.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the show. Last week we began our multi-part special celebrating all things Disney Cruise Line. We shared some history and reminisced about our own voyages aboard the ship. Then we were joined by our very special guest, Trisha Daab, who told us about her recent adventures on the Disney Wonder as it sailed through Alaska this past September. If you haven't listened to the show number 65 yet, check it out to hear about her Glacier Day adventures. Today, Trisha will share her thoughts on some of the excursions she went on and talk about what life is like aboard the ship itself. Just like last week, don't forget to check out our YouTube page at WDW Reflections Podcast for exclusive videos and photos from all of our journeys aboard the ship. Here's part 2 of our conversation with Trisha Daab.
I saw a photo also of you with some puppies. What was that about?
Yes, so that was while we were in Juneau. One of our excursions was called Sled Dog and Mushers Camp. So sled dogs, they have to train year round. They need to run anywhere to 20 to 40 miles a day. And in the summer, it can be sometimes even unsafe to take the dogs up onto the glaciers where they do a lot of the sled dog in the Juneau area, especially. And there are excursions. I think all of those ended up getting canceled. August and September, if you want a helicopter, and then they take a helicopter out to a glacier, and then you sled dog on the glacier. August, September, like they basically try to tell you, don't book this. It's likely to get canceled. It did when we were there. But the summer one is set up to train the dogs in the summer, and then also the babies. So they can't take little teeny tiny puppies up to the glacier either. So what we did is we got on very, very super early in the morning. This excursion started at 7:30 a.m. So Alaska's not your sleep-in cruise. It's just, you will miss so much if you do. But we got on a bus, and we took a bus kind of winding through Juneau into like this interesting area that this company rents a plot of land from a very eccentric Alaskan guy. And you get to go on what kind of looks like a golf cart, like a rejigged golf cart, and a sled dog team pulls the golf cart. So this is actually like a sled dog team that they would likely be working together to pull a sled for an Iditarod racer. So they have a number of them that complete in Iditarod, the big sled dog marathon. And so, yeah, so you get to get pulled. They do, I think it's like a 2.5 mile track that the dogs run you on. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's so short, it's so short. Yeah, but it's like painfully hot for these dogs. These dogs are kind of made to be in like 20 degrees and below. So to be pulling a sled full of people in 50, 55 degree weather, they really can't go for that long. And they actually have to make the dog stop a lot of times and like, no, you have to stop and take a drink. And so they pull you, and it's amazing. It's so fun. It's crazy how fast you go, and you're winding around through this forest, and they're pulling you through there. And then after that, there's a suspension bridge over this gorgeous waterfall that you can check out. At the one that we did, there's two. The one that we did is the one I researched and found was the one to do. And then there's a brief presentation by one of the mushers, where he kind of talks about the process of doing the competition and what it's like having all these dogs, and told us things like they name the litters of puppies like based on a theme. So we had like one of the themes for our sled dogs was music. And so there was like cassette tape and record album were like two of the dogs' names, so that they know these are siblings, because you get, these dogs kind of mixed into different sled teams from different litters, and that helps them kind of know who's going to get along and such. And then after that, you get to go hold puppies. So we had 2 sets of puppies. One, they were 10 weeks old, and they were in the breakfast items group. So their names were Biscuits and Gravy. They were like none of the humans. They just wanted to cuddle each other. But then they came out with 4-week-old husky puppies. So that was a picture you saw, was getting to hold a 4-week-old husky puppy. They were in the berry group. And they were just like the sweetest thing. My one coat still has like just every now and then little like weird dog smell because the dog was like trying to go into the hood of my coat. It was raining at this point and chilly, and the dog was like, "You're warm. I'm just gonna climb inside." And that was like, oh, I was like, that could have ended the day in Juneau and been great. And the crazy part was, by the end of that excursion, it was like 9:30 in the morning. And we were in Juneau until 4. So we ended up doing a couple other things in Juneau, but yeah, puppies, I was in dog withdrawal. And so it was kind of the perfect, like fix.
Well, I know you mentioned that the internet access was sparse there. When we went, it was before social media was such a big thing, and that everything you rely on the phone for everything nowadays. Do you have to rely on the Navigator app to get you around and to get you to do their things, or do they still do things by paper? Or what do they do nowadays?
We didn't get any sort of printed Navigator. It was all on the app, and there wasn't ever any I don't remember any issues really accessing the app. I think that's something that they're able to give access to that you don't necessarily need to have.
Right, it's on board. Do they give you reminders of now it's your dinner time or anything like that? Or
yeah, you can sign up for all of that. You favorite stuff, and then it'll pop up. And I was actually just kicking myself because I was like, I thought I had taken screen grabs of the Navigator app over there, because it was times where, I will be honest, it was just overwhelming, and I wanted paper. I wanted to be able to see. Mm-hmm. So what I had done, because I'm me, and I have accepted this about myself, I am a planner. So I had found a Navigator from earlier in the season that was the same sailing as we had, just obviously with a different date. And so I went and printed that Navigator up so that I could kind of get a sense of like, what do days look like? When do things kind of plot out? Knowing I could be covering, a number of different things for some of the places I write for. I wanted to kind of make sure that I was seeing the stuff that only happens here. And things like freezing the night away. This is the only sailing that it's only Alaska that they do this whole set of frozen activities. So yeah, but it was overwhelming with how much was happening on the ship, and like how many different things. And you've got special photo ops, you've got the characters, you've got open houses, you've got all of the entertainment activities. I would say I was bad about doing activities until probably like day 6 of the cruise was when I kind of like figured out, hey, you're missing this whole cool thing of like all these activities. And
did they have a show for you? Did they do any other show other than the Frozen?
Yeah, so we had Golden Mickeys.
Golden Mickeys, they still do that.
Yeah, we had Golden Mickeys on our first day at sea, and then we had Frozen. I want to say Frozen was on Juneau night. They used to try to squeeze Frozen on the same night as Glacier Day, but like it's just you're going on Glacier Day until from like 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. And that's if you have early dining. If you have late dining, you're going, it's just such a long day.
And I think I remember you're a musical theater fan. Would you agree that the quality and the caliber of these shows is up there with what you see in a Broadway stage?
Oh, absolutely. The Frozen musical, I was kind of surprised I liked that one the best. But I would say each of them had moments. In Disney Dreams, the Lion King piece at Disney Dreams is like insane, and you're also kind of like, how are you doing this? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm really glad the ship's like totally stable while this is happening. Frozen was amazing. I loved how they portrayed Olaf, and we got to actually do the guy who did Olaf, and because he uses a puppet. So that I thought that was really neat, the way they did that with the kids being the same actor, but they were with puppets. And so he did a talk and was talking about, some of the challenges about doing Olaf, and like he noticed kids would watch his face and not Olaf. So he had to make sure he was making facial expressions. And yeah, super talented group. Golden Mickeys was really fun. I loved watching the ASL interpreters. Like, I don't know why. I just how excited they were. And then I got a chance to meet them one time at dinner, and they were like, this is the best job in the world. Like it's really super fun. I was also, that was another thing I was really impressed with Disney, and I've heard different folks have had different experiences just in terms of accessibility and inclusivity on the boat. Really found Disney, just as I think they do in the parks, work really hard for that. And Alaska in general is not the most accessible place, and Disney works very hard to be able to work with excursion operators that will make it possible. And we actually experienced that with our Glacier Explorer excursion. It's basically like you have to be able to rocky kind of moving, not super stable bridge. You can't bring a wheelchair onto the Glacier Explorer boats. And so people have to be able to make their own way. And we made some friends on the ship, and he's in a wheelchair, but he worked with a physical therapist just to be able to do that excursion, to be able to make the walk from the ship down onto the boat, and then to be able to do it back. And it was a really moving experience, because when we came back, it had started to rain, and the head of security for our ship brought a team to come and help and make sure that this person was safe. And Disney didn't need to do that, but that's what Disney does. Is they had said, they didn't necessarily, there wasn't a lot that was done, prior to getting the person on, but he got on. He was great. The team on the boat itself, which was not a Disney team, they were really wonderful to work with. But I thought it was so awesome that the head of security, and I got a chance to talk with him because we were waiting for these folks, just if there's anything we could carry and help with. And he said, this is the best job in the world. Like, being able to help make this possible for this person really means a lot to my team and I. And that's the stuff that I think stands out. We had two support dogs on our ship as well, and one was a therapy dog for a cast member. And so those things that extra effort that Disney will make, and we did see that multiple.
They do. I've actually heard that they still keep up the quality of the old Disney quality that you used to experience in the parks is still aboard the ships. They'll go those extra miles for you, especially the cast members.
And I would say my experience in the parks is, I think that it happens. It's just those environments can be so kind of high stress for people that I've seen people kind of lose just civility and kindness. And my experience has been, if you're nice to cast members, and they will pay it. Like you'll reap amazing benefits being nice to cast members. But I think, sometimes with all the high stress and the heat and, and all those things that get to you, people kind of forget that piece of it. And then they're like, oh, but I didn't have a great experience. It's like, yeah, but you were screaming at somebody about like rain. In Florida. Let's Disney doesn't control the weather.
Well, equally, one of the points that I was going to make in what I was talking about earlier was that the importance of going on these trips, you get in what you put in a way. Like, you should, before going on one of these trips, you should explore everything that's available to you, plan it out, just like you would at the parks. It's not just a ship to just go on and have things happen. You've got to know when you're going, figure that out, plan it out, and look at all the different things that you want to do before you get there so that you can make the most of your trip there.
Absolutely. And I would say I was researching, this is the most longest pre-planning for a trip I've ever done. In terms of watching vlogs and looking at plans and structuring days, and because so many things happen only once, It really is only once. And that's not necessarily, so if you're doing 4 nights in a Disney World, that nighttime show, Happily Ever After in Magic Kingdom, you may only have one shot because that's your Magic Kingdom night, but the show's being shown for all 4 nights that you're there. It's just making choices. That's not the case here. If you miss Freezing the Night Away, it's it. If you don't make it to the Frozen musical, that's it. It's if you don't get off the boat in that port, that's it. It's not going back there. So it's not like the next day, oh, you can do all of these things. So I was glad that we did the planning. The port excursions, I just did tons and tons and tons of research to really figure out, this is where we want to spend this time. This is what we want to see. And then you hear things when you're out there on the ship. I got to meet the naturalist that was on our boat, and he kind of talks you through on Glacier Day of like, what are you seeing, what's the wildlife and everything. And he was on a excursion that I was on, and he was saying you have to see Mendenhall Glacier when you're in Juneau. You have to see it. It's receding, and it's almost to a point that, you know, some people think that it is land-based, so that means it won't be visible anymore. As they recede, it's like you can only see them in the distance. You can't get anywhere kind of near or close to them because it's just on land, and the only way to see it then becomes by plane. And so it was, you know, okay, now we got to figure out, okay, when we're in Juneau, we have to figure out, we got to squeeze this in. And, you know, then there's that worry of like, oh my gosh, okay, none of the excursions to see Mendenhall are available anymore. And it was like, how do we do this and make sure we get back to the ship in time? And like, aren't those people running on the pier? And so yeah, it's like you hear things too when you're there and you're talking to locals and stuff. So it definitely does take some thought and planning. And we had multiple times where we like just missed something amazing. Like, you know, a bear is just sitting in a creek, like 10 feet from people, like eating salmon.
Did you say earlier you saw some humpback whales?
We did. Icy Strait Point is great for whales. That's another reason to really kind of research your ports and kind of figure out what to do. So there are some folks that Juneau is also great for whale watching, but Juneau was the only place on our trip where you could do the sled dogs. It was the only place where you could have a glacier experience like Mendenhall. So we kind of saved whales for Icy Strait Point, where there was kind of less there that we really wanted to do, and then did the things in Juneau that we couldn't do anywhere else. Yeah, we got to see orcas, we got to see humpbacks, we saw sea lions, we saw otters. And it's really cool because you hop on this boat and all of the captains of all of the ships talk to each other. Oh, we've got a pod over here. This is what they're doing, you know, just trying to help each other and find stuff. And the crew of that ship was amazing. I've some pictures of those guys. Like you end up you're on these boats for like 4 hours. So you end up like building camaraderie with the crew and the passengers on the boat. Everybody's running to one side and running to the other with their binoculars. And they have limits on how close they can get to any of the wildlife, but if the wildlife moves towards is moving towards the boat, like, and the boat has to stay, it can't move anywhere. So we had at one point that this one humpback just got so close. Like he's like, I've had it where they've had times where they've gone under the boat, but they're, you know, diving to feed. And so then they taught us like, here's what to watch for. This is what this means when they spout. This is what it means when you see the tail. They're probably going to stay down because that means that they're feeding. So they're hanging out. And so like, you know, if you haven't seen the tail yet, pay attention because that's when you get the, you know, amazing, you know, whale tail pictures. And yeah, it was, yeah, it just so much access to things that you're not used to. It's like, this is in the wild. And the cruise director would every night kind of remind people of that. Like, hey guys, just, you know, everybody remember, this is not a Disney park. These are not animatronic whales. These are real whales. We cannot.
These are real things.
Yeah, we can't manipulate things in any way. One of the excursions we were on, they were trying to get these eagles to dive for fish. And sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. And the coolest part is these eagles come back and nest in the same places. So the locals start to name them, and they know where their nests are. And they, you know, kind of know the personalities of the birds and the wildlife. And at one point in time with the whales, these guys were so kind of expert in this that they were able to identify, okay, so that's the grandma, that's the mom, and that's the baby, and the grandma's teaching the baby how to do that. And I'm like, how do you, but it's just, Disney works with a lot of these local organizations to track the whales as well, to just ensure that, okay, how are migration patterns changing? What are we paying attention to with that? Is there something that we need to be aware of? Or are we seeing somebody who's not with a group that used to be with a group? So yeah, it's really, the whole thing is so fascinating. You're seeing things that like, you don't see these things in real life, like just out.
As I mentioned before, there's so much to do and see that it's hard to wrap it all up into one conversation. But let me ask you one last question that I'm curious about. When you take the cruise line from Florida, one of the advantages of that is you get to visit Disney's private island in the Bahamas. What kind of alternative do they have for that in Alaska, or is there one?
There's not. Most of the places that you're going to in Alaska are national parks. These are protected land. So you're getting to see things kind of other level in that way of in terms of like getting to a place that can only be accessed in this way. These glaciers that I was talking about, the part that's in Endicott Arm, this is the only way we can see them is by boat. I think you can maybe do seaplanes, but with some of those you have to be careful because it's so far from civilization. I think that the crew on the boat said it's about a 3-hour boat ride for them to get back to Juneau from that glacier area. So a 3-hour boat ride to get near where we were for that glacier. So I think in that way, in terms of like a private island, there wasn't anything like that. I guess Icy Strait Point is a port that's owned by cruise lines, like, but multiple, they all kind of work together. So you're not necessarily there with just your ship, but in general, yeah, I think with Alaska, you know, you kind of start to build relationships with people on the ship because you're on it for so long. So you start to see the same people. There was this one amazing couple that I made friends with. And we decided that like when we went on an excursion together, we had the most amazing time because we did the Glacier Explorer together. We got to see, this just giant iceberg fall off the glacier. Even the guys on the boat the crew was excited. They're like, we haven't seen one that big in a while. And then we had the amazing puppy experience. And so we felt like every time did something together, it ended up, we ended up being incredible. And so I think with that, I've not experienced the private island, so maybe I'm speaking to something that.
If you were to go again on a Disney cruise, where would you want it to go to?
I've been talking about like wanting to do the Christmas Market River cruise for
Where's that?
So there's a series of that go through different rivers through Europe, and it goes to
Oh
all
yeah,
the
yeah.
markets in Europe. Disney now does one of those through Adventures by Disney, but it's only the week of Christmas. So other lines do them outside of Christmas, and I'm like, I don't know about being gone the week of Christmas, and also with like someone else's kids. Like there's gonna be a lot of kids on that boat. And I would say the Norway fjords is one that's interested me. A lot of people have said if you like Alaska and you don't want to do Alaska again, the Norway fjords has some similarities. I've also my mom loved it, so my mom's like, I want to do another one, and so now it's kind of researching and figuring out where that would be. The other one is that I was looking at is like islands in Italy and Rome. I've always wanted to go to Capri.
Mediterranean.
Yeah, so doing something in the Mediterranean. Again, places where it like just not quite as easy to get to. My husband and I both have traveled a lot for work. So I have no issue like going and being in a city. We did Edinburgh, Scotland, and like staying in Edinburgh for 10 days, and like you get to know the city, you get to know the food, you get to know the people. That's also incredible. So I don't know that it's the cruising's the way I would do every vacation going forward, but I think when you're getting into places that are not that easy to get to, it's definitely it was a great experience.
Really appreciate you sharing that with us. Guys, do you have any questions for Trisha?
Well, I think you
Comments
did a
on-
great job. You're the I guess between the three of us, the cruise expert. You've been on a ton of them. As I said, I've never been on one, so really the most I know about cruising is man, that ship is big. That's my level of expertise. So everything you guys, I mean, Tony, you asked all the great questions, but everything you're talking about is new to me, and I'm learning stuff. I wouldn't even know what questions to ask that you hadn't already asked, but goodness, Trisha, not to be critical or anything, but if next time you're on the show, if you could be a little more enthusiastic about the topic, I would appreciate that. No, I mean, it's fantastic. I can tell. Obviously you love travel, but I mean, you're just beaming from the experience that this cruise offered you. So I think that's fantastic. I learned a ton. Being a someone that hasn't been on a cruise, that was a lot of really good information. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
I think that you've sold me from a want to. I'm not sure yet, that only because I think, well, you did sell me on the, if I'm going to go to Alaska, you may have sold me on making sure I check Disney out. The boat size makes a lot of sense to me, and having the opportunity to go into some areas that other ships aren't going to be able to makes so. And Alaska is definitely a cruise that I want to do. I'm just gonna I think the last time I priced a cruise, but this was pre-COVID, was probably about 5,000 for an Alaskan cruise for two of us. So based on that, I would guess the cruise would be about 10,000 for, but again, that was pre-COVID pricing, so I don't even know what it would look like today. But but you've done a good job of I mean, it doesn't take a lot to sell me on Disney's experience. There's no question you're going to go and you're going to see details that you wouldn't have thought that Disney thinks of. You're going to experience a very family friendly environment, versus on some of the cruise ships, you don't always see family friendly for sure. Some are worse at that than others. So I've had the opportunity to cruise quite a bit. I've been on Royal Caribbean, I've been on Carnival, I've been on Virgin, and I would rank all of those for you if anybody asked. But all that being said, I would love to be able to compare it to Disney one day. So maybe one day. It's just so hard when it's literally double.
Probably
Yeah.
more like 10 times.
Yeah, but you're getting the ambiance of it. For one thing, you don't have a casino on the Disney ship. So
Right.
people are there with a different mindset. Like they're
Sure.
not there to get drunk and gamble. This isn't like, the earlier Las Vegas time before they tried to make it more of a entertainment destination. And secondly is the opulence of a Disney ship. You don't have that on the other cruise ships. You're staying in a Motel 7 when you're on another cruise ship. When you're on a Disney cruise ship, not only is there things like the pattern in the carpet and all this stuff is themed around some sort
Sure.
of Disney thing, but just the materials are so much better. And as far as the ship size goes, I am kind of hesitant about the newer ships they're doing because I think they're just too big. But the smaller ships are really nice. They started off with the navy blue paint, which is the black, because you're not allowed to use black on a ship. So the black on the Disney ships is actually a very dark navy. It's based on the QE2. And you get that feeling when you're on the ship of that this is an elegant, I mean, you wear shorts and jeans and all that kind of stuff, but it's you're getting what you pay for, basically.
No, I absolutely. I look forward to experiencing it. There's definitely a want to go on a Disney cruise for sure, and I think that I have no question that the quality of the ship is much grander than what I've experienced. And I would even guess, this is a guess, because on all three ships, the food quality was fairly similar. I would guess that Disney, I would hope, would be a step above what the other ships are offering. I guess one question I do have, though, Royal especially is just crazy with Days at Sea and offering these, let us sell you this, let us sell you this, here's a 20% off, it's almost like you go down to a yard sale for
a merchandise type day, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. And then they're always taking your picture and they're always trying to sell you something. So
well,
what's
Disney's
Disney
gotten
like
into
from
that
that
a
perspective?
lot more than they used to, because now they have these candy shops and ice cream parlors on the ship that are not part of the all-inclusive price.
And it's not to say that you can't get candy or ice cream otherwise.
Yeah,
it's free,
that's the whole thing,
but
is you can get it for
yeah.
free. But
yeah, but this is
have,
different. I'm not talking, that stuff's kind of nice sometimes, right? But I'm talking like
Watches.
the gift shops, they bring tables and tables of watches, exactly.
Oh no, they
Artwork and
didn't used to do that. I haven't heard of them doing that. They just have the regular gift shops.
Disney merchandise.
Yeah, with the Disney
And also some places that you're going to.
things other than just
Yeah.
Disney merchandise. It's kind of like the Grand Floridian shop,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say I never felt like a sales pressure.
Mhm.
I even like really went back and forth about doing the, on board when you book, like when you hold another cruise and you get it.
right, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I ended up forgetting. And because there was no pushing and no pressure of, do you want to do this? Port excursions, we had different things and conversations we had to have. There was never like, I'm going to try to push another port
Mhm.
excursion on you. The stores, most of the time, the stores were so busy that like, there's no one being a pushy salesperson. There's no one.
Well, yeah, this
to
is
to do
that's
any.
cool. And I think so there's again each cruise ship has their way of doing things, and one thing that Virgin does really well, and it sounds very similar to what Disney does, and it's a rotation of where you eat in restaurants. You don't have a main dining room. They didn't push anything. They never took our picture once. Not once did they take our picture and try to sell us pictures. They didn't. Their shops were actually kind of bare. They were in the midst of some changes and things, but to your point, Trisha, they also had a discount to rebook, but you forgot about it because they were so not pushing it. But anyway, very interesting. So I love hearing about this, and you've only underlined my bucket list item of going to
so Ron, you kind of like threw me a lob for the other thing I wanted to talk about. Something that they have in Disney, and I'll be honest, I haven't researched other ships to know that they have this. So I know that it's on Disney because we had a room called a Navigator's Veranda.
Oh,
So it was
okay.
veranda space, big giant. So I want to show you. Well, one of the things we were talking about how beautiful the Wonder is. Like
wow, yeah.
That's one of the reasons sailing out of Vancouver, and Disney only sails out of Vancouver going to Alaska. The views going out of Vancouver and even of the ship itself, that was from our hotel room in Vancouver as the ship was coming in. So it's a port.
Oh,
I think, Jen, to kind of your point of just like how gorgeous this ship looks and feels, it feels very elegant. But I wanted to share like these pictures this is a picture from our room on Glacier Day. So this is kind of a video moving through this Navigator's Veranda. And so that big opening was all totally open air, and you could see how close we were to land. Like it's just insane. And the interesting part with this room specifically is this style veranda is actually ended up saving us $1,100.
Mm-hmm.
This style room. Open verandas. I almost feel like I hesitate to say it because I feel like Disney's going to figure this out and then change the cost structure. Like, okay, Navigator's verandas are more expensive on Alaska cruises because that's what you want to do on an Alaska cruise.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of switched with that versus where the tropical cruises are.
It is backwards, yes. That style veranda is amazing. You can sleep with your door open because rain can't get in your room. It will rain. It's Alaska. It will rain. If it doesn't, something crazy's happened, but it's Alaska. It's going to rain. And the thing is, when it's gorgeous out, you're going to want to be on decks 9 and 10. So the great part with the Navigator's Veranda is when we had kind of icky weather, we were still sitting outside on Glacier Day.
So that was in your room.
That was in our room. That was our
So it's a covered balcony, basically?
Yes, a covered balcony
like a window,
with a giant, like almost like screen door size porthole.
Okay, yeah.
And there were chairs out there, and it was slightly bigger than some other verandas. I saw some of the other folks' verandas, like depending on where they were in the ship, it was like deeper, so we could comfortably fit 2 people out there. No issues whatsoever. It became the backdrop for all the towel animals, like every night.
That's awesome.
This is the perfect. It's like a picture frame. You saw those pictures. it's and that was the case with all the ports that we pulled into, and it was, I mean, and it, so that was where we save money, and I'm fine with sharing costs. I'm doing it in an insider article. So our base cost for the two of us for the cruise, we booked over a year in advance. It was 5,800, and again, part of that was that savings that we got from doing the navigator style veranda room. We were in the aft on the starboard side. I would highly recommend starboard side if you're doing Alaska. Also aft, the weather just doesn't hit the back as bad. We had people that were in the front that were like, that was awful, and everyone in the back's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know.
Wow, interesting.
Or if it's just
Hey, I want to link to your article because I want to read about it and I want to be able. But wow, that sounds like incredible pricing, actually.
Yes, and the thing that I had to remember, I'm not a cruiser, so that included every meal. You don't have to spend any more money than that. There's no requirement. You don't have to get a special drinks. It includes all the soft drinks and things like that. It includes coffee. Like if you want to go get a fancy coffee, yeah, that costs extra. If you want alcohol, it costs extra. We
But
did
it includes soft drinks?
Yes.
Yes.
And up on the top deck, they have the machines where you can get it all the time. You can get room service 24/7.
Yes.
And in between regular dining room meals, like we were talking about, like Tiana's, blah, 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 they have the top deck is open with chicken fingers and stuff like that, pizza.
Buffets.
Which you would
And
expect,
then there's a buffet that runs almost 12 hours a day. It basically breakfast closes and it opens for lunch like a half hour later, et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't want to go to the dining area, you know, your dinner, your assigned dinner, you don't have to go to your assigned dinner. And when we went, breakfast and lunch, they would have certain restaurants that were open that you could go to if you didn't want to go to the buffet or the top deck or room service.
Yep, and that's still the case. Yep. So Triton's was usually open for breakfast and Tiana's was usually open for lunch.
Yeah, and that's where we always went because I'm like, we're paying all this money for it. I'm not getting pizza and chicken fingers. I'm going to the nice fancy restaurant. Thank you.
But I gotta be honest, the lunch of champions on a Disney cruise ship is pizza and soft serve. Like I can't, I don't know what they put in that soft serve. Ron, like that alone is worth. That stuff is so good. That was the only time I felt like there was ever I wanted food and couldn't get it, was the soft serve machine on the last night. Like they have to start, it's something with some sort of legal thing, but they have to start closing stuff down by a certain time before you move into disembark. So
yeah, that makes sense.
The soft serve machine at like 10:59 had like a line because everyone's like, I'm getting as much as I can before that very last day. But yeah, those cones became, but yeah, so we ended up, it was 5,800, and again that was like the base core cruise cost. That was and then we had about an additional 3,000 that we spent on merchandise, drinks on board, excursions. So like additional money that went to Disney that included the transfer to the airport on the way back. It did not include on the way in because we didn't transfer with Disney. And then, you know, obviously Vancouver's international. So, you know, flight cost is just more. And then we did stay at a nicer hotel in our Vancouver side. So we stayed at the Pan Pacific, which is actually in the port. So you just take an elevator down to the bottom.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And it's cool too. They pick up your luggage, and next time you see it, it's on outside.
Oh no, see, that's worth it right there.
Yeah, and that's huge.
I hate lugging luggage.
Yeah. And honestly, you can work with Disney to get transfers from the airport where like that all happens and your luggage is in your room. So
yeah, that was fun. Especially, it's kind of like the Magical Express used to be at the hotels.
Yeah, and they do that, and they and we like lived it up on port excursions. We really went with the idea that we're not coming back. We're not doing this again. We might take a cruise, but probably not to Alaska. So we're going to do it up. We did we had at least one excursion, if not two. The Glacier Explorer excursion is expensive. It's one of the more expensive boat-based ones. obviously Disney will do stuff where you can hire a private boat and you can hire your own seaplane and all of this. Like they have some like really super exclusive, expensive ones. But in general, that's the other sticker shock people have, is how much excursions in Alaska are. But that's excursions in Alaska.
I'd like to give a quick tip you just reminded me of for those of you out there who might be considering this and wondering. I found a little trick, which I hope Disney doesn't latch onto either. But on the days of excursions, if you really don't want to go anywhere and there's something on the ship that you just want to enjoy, let's say you just want to enjoy a peaceful day, getting sunshine or lying by the pool or going exploring the spa, the best day to do that is on the excursion days because most of the ship is off doing something else. We had been given free spa passes. I don't remember what the reasoning why, maybe because we didn't take advantage of something. I don't really remember why we got that. But Jen unfortunately was sick, but I said, we've got to try this out. The spa experience, I had that entire thing all to myself. There was not a single soul in sight. Everybody was off doing something, and I got to have the hot tub, the sauna,
Rainforest thing.
the rainforest showers. I had all of that all to myself, and it was great. So if you don't feel like going out, if you have a member of your family that doesn't feel or is able to go on those excursions with you, there are things like that that are just great to experience.
Well, I think that's a other good point is that if you don't book excursions, you don't have to book excursions. Everything still happens on the ship. Like when the ship is docked in the tropical ones at Castaway Cay and Lighthouse Point, everything on the ship is still working.
Happening.
It's still there, you know.
Still lively.
It's not like when you're someplace and you're trapped in your hotel room and everybody else goes someplace and you're just there going, okay, looking at the walls. Everything on the ship is still on the ship. They do down service some things, because most people are on the island, but everything is still running, everything still works. And I think that's a really good thing about this is like Trisha was saying about she was picking out which excursion she wanted to do. You really get to plan the whole thing yourself of what kind of experience you want to have. And I think that's a really good thing about it.
And you can keep yourself busy because, as I mentioned, she had gotten sick one of those nights that we were there, and so I went to go see Iron Man 3D in a huge 3D theater, and it was beautiful. It was better than the theater we have here.
Yeah, that was the other cool thing is they show the movies as like when they come out or maybe a little before they come out in the movie theater. And it's a real movie theater, as we said before about the stage shows. It's a real it's a real Broadway theater sitting on that ship.
Yeah, it's really
nothing is underdone just because it's on a ship. You wouldn't know you were on a ship.
Other than the occasional.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say that was one of the weird things with Alaska is you get on the ship and you're in Vancouver. And so we got on, I think our boarding time was 11:30. So we were on the ship maybe by like 12:45. The first time we stepped on lands was in Icy Strait Point. And you don't kind of realize. And so that was 4 days, almost 4 days. Because the glacier, you're not getting on land. The ship is just anchored. It's not, there's no docks, there's no piers, it's not a town or a city. You're in the middle of a national park, essentially. And so yeah, that first time when you step on land in Icy Strait Point, you're like, whoo, and you got to walk on a big long pier to get to the land. So it's like you're finally on land, and it's kind of a weird feeling that first time. I didn't really have a lot of seasickness issues on the boat. I had like 1 or 2 nights that I took something, but I will say when I got back, that's when it hit me hard. I got the whole like weird, everything's still wrapped. I was sitting at the hotel in Vancouver Airport, like the hotel's not moving right. I was like, no, it's really you. She didn't have any issues, but I was like, the whole thing is moving. Like it felt like being in an earthquake a little bit, but yeah, it's not an inexpensive vacation. It's an investment vacation. I think sometimes like we'll take stuff where it's like, okay, how inexpensive we can do this. This is, and I would say, keep in mind too, if you're doing somewhere like Alaska, the Alaska landscape is changing every year. It is. Anyone you talk to, they have a time lapse of Mendenhall Glacier.
Oh yeah, you don't want to, that's really,
it's going away. There's an entire lake that 40 years ago was not there that is now there. that was that glacier receding. So that's another piece to kind of think about when you take a cruise to somewhere like this, that this is a place that's never going to look like this again. And that was where we made the decision of, okay, we're going to do the 1,100, we're going to do the $1,100 less, but we're not going to go to an inside stateroom because this probably won't happen again. Yes, we're going to pay that, the Glacier Explorer is $309 a person. It's a 3 to 4 hour excursion. That's a lot of money. Like, I am the first to say that was a lot of money, but totally worth it, because when am I ever going to be in a quarter mile of a glacier, drinking a glacierita again? Like, it's probably not going to happen. So I'm really glad it did, because it probably won't. So it's something with a cruise like this that I would say this is the one, like, kind of, this is the investment one. And again, I'm biased view because this is the one I've experienced, but just from what I've seen with some other folks that cruised frequently, had even done Alaska before, they were like, this is, if you're going to do it and you want to do it right, this is the way to do it. And this is the cruise line. The locals love Disney. And that says a lot when you're in a place and the locals really like speak to how quality the cruise line is too.
Trisha, I really appreciate some of the insight and some of the. I'm looking forward to your article actually, but you've sold me definitely on Disney to Alaska, and it's good to hear that kind of some of the excursions that I need to plan for that may be a little more pricier than what I was anticipating, but worth, like you're saying, it definitely. There's some things that are worth a little bit more when it's going to be a once in a lifetime thing, or likely, at least at the very least, not on a regular basis type thing. So
absolutely. And that was kind of where our head was. I remember when it was 11 o'clock at night and we're like trying to book our excursions because we have no status. Like, we were in the very last group and we were looking, the glacier excursion was open and we're like, do we do it? My mom's like, when would we ever be back? Like, and that's, and I felt very fortunate that we were in a position to be able to do that, and it's, there's other ways to save money, stay at a less nice place. It's not, Vancouver's a super easy city to get around. We saw people go, very clearly walking along the waterfront, staying at a place that was away from the port, which is going to be substantially cheaper, walking along the waterfront to get to their cruise ship. And the cool part is you have this walk where you can see your cruise ship like the entire time as you're walking along the water. And it's a great city to go out of. And I'm always a big fan of Canada. I feel like Canadians are really nice. So the food is also amazing in that city too. What it was. Oh, weird fun thing about the Disney Wonder. 2 of the best views on the ship: workout room, smoking lounge.
Wow.
I don't know this because I visited either of them. I heard from people that were in them. So there was a guy that was like on a rowing machine on Glacier Day and like looked up and was like, wow. And then for whatever reason, the smoking lounge is at the front of the ship. And when you're approaching the glacier on Glacier Day, you're approaching it obviously from the front of the ship, and then they turn the ship a full 360 over the course of the day. But it was a little bizarre because like we had found like a really good view and a good place to stand, and I'm like, I smell smoke, and it was basically like above the It's a little bizarre, and one of those things again where it's like the ship was not designed specifically for Alaska, where some have been. So that's something to kind of.
I'm assuming one of those new 13 ships that they've got coming will probably be designed for that kind of ship from now on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether they decide they want to sail a bigger boat into Alaska or not, because from what we saw, it was not the smallest. There was a smaller, like I think very kind of boutique exclusive line that they would park in the port on the other side, on like Vancouver Island side. But all of the ones that were in port with us were all much bigger. Like, you could see Royal Caribbean from miles away with all of its lights as it was like coming up when you were sailing at night and stuff. it was, yeah, definitely one of the smaller boats that was sailing in that area.
Hey, Trisha, we truly appreciate this conversation. We could go on and on.
Yeah.
There's so much to cover because it's really a lot of fun. I mean, we didn't even talk about our trip, so this is great. And I appreciate you reaching out and letting us know about this trip. It's nice to hear about what's been going on and that the quality is still there. Our last trip was back in 2013,
Don't say it.
2013, almost 11 years ago, I know. But yeah, that's great, and I'm glad that you shared that with us. And I hope that you'll share some of those videos and pictures with us because on the YouTube version of the show, I like to share exclusive things. So any of you listening can go over there and take a look at some of what we've been talking about.
Absolutely. I have
So
a couple favorites from Alaska, so I will send you some stuff from that.
Awesome.
Oh, and
So-
fun fact, the Alaska costumes that the characters are using are the ones they took from Canada. Because
Oh,
we went
right.
on the first Canada cruise. That's what they were wearing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I think it's the only place now that you can get those ones is at least what we were told by Disney is like that's the only cruise that like Mickey's the fisherman and
Mhm.
Mickey's a beautiful coat.
Yeah, Donald in his plaid shirt, and yeah.
Yeah, Goofy is a lumberjack.
hmm
Sorry, Dewey, you were going to say something.
Yeah, give the big goofy dog an axe. That's a great idea. So, that was amazing. I will have to tell you, I am not a cold weather fella. I probably won't be taking the Alaska, but what I am, I'm intrigued by the Hawaii, Australia thing you were talking about. That one, I would probably be all over. So I'm going to look into that. As
That's
amazing as Alaska sounds, you were like, it's Alaska, even, you're not going to get 80. And I'm like, 80 is the minimum I want to experience. So
There are people that do. Like I had a friend that her whole family, like all they brought was plaid and flap hats and the whole bit, and they're all like boiling hot, sweat dripping down their face. Like she's like, where are these clothes? And it's because it happens. It happens. But yeah, you want to talk about a way to get to Australia without jet lag? Like
Yeah.
right, that's what I'm thinking. So that is you've planted a seed for sure. So that was awesome. Trisha, I know you've been here before, but it was a long time ago. You have a couple of minutes to do our wrap up here at the end with our what's your favorite?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I just did a quick, really fast little bit of what's happening around Walt Disney World research, and it's actually not going to be Walt Disney World today because it's going to be Disney Cruise Line connected, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So as we know, the Disney Cruise Line ships are packed with subtle and not so subtle Disney details. And Tony, you touched on this at the beginning of the show, but one of the most beloved is the ship's horns, which plays various melodies from iconic Disney songs. So the Disney Treasure, which I believe is one of the upcoming ships, is going to feature 7 new arrangements that play on its horn, including songs from The Haunted Mansion, Coco, and Aladdin. So that just came out a couple days ago. I thought that was super cool. I thought I would throw that in there since, Disney Cruise Line theme today. So that's it for what's going on. Let's talk about what's your favorite. This is probably going to be one of the hardest ones we've done before, and the theme of this show inspired this question. I'm going to take care of it today. So each episode, one of the hosts brings with them a question to ask the other two, and in this case, 4 people here today. So this is cool. This might be the most we've ever had. The growing talent on this show, it's unreal. So here we go. It's a little bit different, but I want to know this, y'all. If you were going to name one of the next Disney Cruise Line vessels, what would be your favorite new cruise ship name? So just to ensure we don't try using something that's already been in use, here is the current Disney Cruise Line ship names in alphabetical order: Disney Adventure, Disney Destiny, Disney Dream, Disney Fantasy, Disney Magic, Disney Treasure, Disney Wish, and Disney Wonder. So, panelists, here is your chance to be a Disney Cruise Line Imagineer. Name your ship. Who wants to go first? I don't see any hands going up. I told you it's hard. I told you it's going to be a hard
I
one.
actually have a couple in mind since since this was first announced, and I'm going to go. My favorite idea for a ship, obviously, these are based on their IPs, and on the rear of the ship, I believe that's the bow. They've got a little character hanging out that represents what's going on,
So
as
they have
well
a
as the
character on
statue.
front and the back.
Okay,
And a statue in the
and the
atrium.
statue.
So there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, there's lots to go. But I would love to see the Disney Galaxy. And by having a ship called Disney Galaxy, you can have it'll probably be Grogu, but a little Star Wars character at the back riding the
Cats, porgs and lothcats, porgs and lothcats.
No porgs. The porgs are for eating. They're the chicken of the galaxy.
Oh, now you made us all deaf. What about you?
Tony, that's amazing. I love that. Galaxy, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the best thing I could come up with is the tomorrow, because we've been naming the lands of the parks: Adventureland, Fantasyland.
Oh, true.
Oh, okay. I hadn't made that connection. That's pretty good. I like that. So Disney tomorrow, who would be the character on your in your atrium and all that?
I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. Or do we have a Discovery already?
I don't believe so.
That would be a good one too.
Discovery's good. And I like Discovery. There was a space shuttle named Discovery. That's even cool.
Oh, or Imagination, and we could put Figment on it.
Oh, that's it. I'm shutting it down. I'm
Disney
turning off this.
Imagination.
You just took mine.
Oh no.
Took mine. I protest. I protest. We're fighting next time we meet. That's okay. I have a couple backups, but I don't have any characters associated with it. I was going to do Imagine, and I was going to do Figment. We are so fighting, Jen. It's on. Boo, Jen. No, that was really good, and you came up with it super quick. Nice work. I'm not mad at you anymore.
Okay.
All right, so during that altercation, Ron, Trisha, that should have given you a minute or two to figure something out. Ron's cartoon face looks confused. He's like,
No, I've got one.
All right, sweet. Let's go. What you got?
It's a little unique and maybe not, but Disney Jungle. And go with the Tarzan theme.
Oh, okay. Instead of that water thing on the top, you could do like a zip line. You could have
There you go.
have ropes to swing on or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't hate that idea. That's
That
pretty
one
cool.
could come out of the continents as well.
Well, you have the Jungle Book IP as well as
Yeah.
Tarzan. You can
Yeah.
Oh,
bring
that's
into
true
that.
too. Yeah.
Ron, look at you being an Imagineer
There you go.
and not stealing someone else's idea, by the way. That was pretty cool. All right, Trisha, what you got? It looks like you've been writing something down. You're referring to notes.
Oh, well, that's me. I like write everything down. I feel like I'm like failing as a writer here. I'm looking around trying to get inspired. I liked the imagination one. My idea was kind of playing on something with Imagineers. And the imagination was perfect. I'm trying to think of like any other like Walt phrases and they kind of covered so many of them. I can say what I would love to see is, and I'm hoping that this happens with the ships that are from the Japan Land Company or Tokyo Land Company, is that they will do a sailing that takes you to all of the Asia parks.
That would be wonderful.
That would be
I could
amazing.
never afford that, but boy, I would love that.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm like, I there's one part of me that's like, could I never afford it? But I can tell you, flying from like Tokyo to Hong Kong, they're not close to each other. It's not like, I'm pretty sure if I remember a flight from like Hong Kong to Shanghai is in the hours, like six hours possibly. So getting to those parks between them, just because you're on that side of the world, doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. But
Yeah, well, they wouldn't have built that many of them if they were that close in the first place.
yeah. But yeah, I would love to see that. But I'm trying to think of like the character and kind of like what is, is there a character that really kind of represents kind of this global, worldwide, kind of the Disney has expanded and is in all these other places, and that like exploration and that curiosity, I guess. I think that's another spaceship, like a Disney curiosity, but I'm like,
that's a good one.
but, thank you.
What was it? Disney?
Like, what would be the character? And I was like trying to think of like what would be the character back there that, trying to think what's that character that really represents that like exploration and maybe like a Small World doll or something.
I thought of, when you said that, for some reason I thought of Jiminy Cricket, even though he's not really about curiosity. Or was he? Wasn't that show? What was his show called?
Like Rules.
Yeah, maybe Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah. And there's also, I always love food, so I'm like, could you do one that's just like culinary based? But again, I can't think of it. Maybe it's still too early. I don't know.
Well, I'd like to see Mulan represented more, because she's one of my favorite princesses. So I don't think she's on a ship yet.
It'll be interesting to see if she pops up in the what's the one for Singapore? Is that Adventure?
Adventure sounds right.
Yeah, the one that's going to be based out of Singapore. Well, thanks for the stump. Difficult question there, Dewey.
Well, see, I knew it was going to be hard, and for me, it's even harder when someone steals your genius idea. So
and it throws fiction on there, like, come on,
man! I was going to sell it, man. Mine was going to have the imagination pyramids on one of the deck. I mean, I was going to sell it, and freaking ruined it. Ruined it. But so I don't have any characters to associate. I have a couple of names I thought about, but I don't have any characters to associate with it because my number one idea that I mentioned was stolen. So I had Envision, I had Surprise, and I had Amaze. So I don't know what characters would go with those, but those are just a couple of buzzwords that came to mind. And of course, Imagine was the first one I wrote.
So we could go through the Epcot parking lot.
Or no, because now they're dumb. They're like,
no, the original ones. The original ones. That was
yes.
Wasn't it? Discover, Amaze, Imagination. Yeah.
Yes, that would be
kind of fun if they call it the Disney Reflection.
Now, Tony, I swear I thought that, and I was like, I don't know, is that cheesy? It would be too cheesy to say on the show.
I like that one.
So yeah, well then how about we build a cruise ship, and that's what we'll call it.
There you go.
Yes, maybe we can get Disney.
You could have it be everything the old Epcot for Dewey.
and
Epcot
Orangeburg Epcot themed. Well, the Orange Bird, you can buy Orange Bird merchandise over at Epcot. Not that makes any sense, but it's all good. All right, so that was fun.
I found Figment at Disneyland. I was like, you don't go here.
Really?
Wow.
Like merchandise?
Yeah, like a couple of little things, like a pin, and I think actually I got, where'd it go? I got this postcard. I like got it specifically. It's a Jared Mariyama that was at Disneyland. I was like, this is amazing.
Now, does it have Disneyland branding, or is it just Figment branded?
It's got Disney World branding. It says Epcot, Imagination.
That's so weird.
Yeah. But yeah, I was like, you don't go here.
I guess he does. Maybe where Figment goes on vacation is Disneyland, I guess, apparently.
There you go.
But Disney.
All right, y'all. Well, that just about does it for this episode of the WDW Reflections Podcast. Please find and follow us on all our social media accounts. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, at WDW Reflections Podcast, and on X at WDW Reflections. This podcast can currently be found and played on many podcast platforms, and we'd love it if you give the show a follow wherever you listen. And if you love the show, cast.com. And don't forget, you can always message us from any of those social media accounts, or you can email us at wdwreflectionspodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And please keep coming back and having a listen with us, because we truly appreciate you. Thank you for reflecting on Walt Disney World memories, and in this case, Disney Cruise Line memories, with us on the WDW Reflections Podcast.
See you real soon.